right, class, so we are back and we're here to discuss chapter 5, which is motivation and emotion. So this particular chapter is really short and sweet, yet it provides some very sound and sufficient information. So we're going to get started. We're covering Learning Objective 5.1a, and it is to describe how psychologists define motivation. So the first thing that we have to do is define motive. So according to our text, a motive is a tendency to desire and seek out positive incentives or rewards and to avoid negative outcomes. So this body of material is really going to provide a clear explanation for how we develop some form of motivation. You will find that there are several smaller theories that fall up under this. So one, you can have motivation as an instinct, which we'll talk about shortly. Motivation as a drive, something that is really pushing us or pulling us to do a said behavior. And then last, motivation as incentives. This particular video will primarily cover motivation as an instinct as well as motivation as a drive. So let's take a go at it. So the first theory really cites that a lot of our motivation is prompted by our instinct. So an instinct is an innate impulse from within a person that directs or motivates behavior. Now, this line of thought really was prompted by evolutionary theory, which was created by Darwin. Later in the field of psychology, William James started to present this very massive piece of work to where he initially stated that we have 35 very different, while basic, instincts. So we have an instinct to talk, we have an instinct to connect with people, we have an instinct to love, we have an instinct to imitate others. And all of those said thoughts were very much affirmed by the greater population of psychology consumers. It was only until William James started to expand his thought and just started to reach beyond what the group thought were natural instincts. So William James expanded his line of thought to say, hey, we have 225 different instincts, which to most, they felt as if he was including very much learned behavior. And so they started to pull back from William James' idea. But we still use it. You know, when someone is drawn to someone else and there's some form of love connection. So we still use it. The second theory that we'll talk about is motivation as a drive. More precisely, the drive reduction approach or the drive reduction theory. Now, it's really important that you cite the fact that this theory has two major subcategories. So the first one that we'll talk about is called drive reduction approach, but it takes more of a biological aspect to it. So the drive reduction approach cites the fact that we as individuals, seek to reduce internal levels of drive. Internal levels of drive. That's a lot of words to say this. According to this theory, we have primary drives, which includes having an appropriate temperature, having an appropriate level of satiety with food, as well as appropriate level of water. So anytime that we go below those desired levels, then we start to have this prompting of wanting to eat, wanting to drink, and wanting to increase our temperature. Those are primary drives. But we're receiving this said message through this mechanism that's called the negative feedback loop. That's a system of feedback in the body that monitors and adjusts our motivation level so that we maintain homeostasis. A good example of this could be when we have low levels of glucose in our body. That can prompt us to start to do a behavior to where we're eating. Once we're full, then that desire, that motivation of eating is taken away. So the primary drives is basically saying that we have this biological needs to maintain homeostasis, and when we're below it, that level of homeostasis, we're going to do a said behavior to meet our need. The second function, or the second subcategory of the drive reduction theory, is one that I really enjoy talking about because I can explain a person's motivation by using this said theory, and I bet you can too. But anywho, the second line of thought covers what we call secondary drives. Secondary drives. So secondary drives is a learned drive that is not directly related to biological needs. So it's not directly related to biological needs. And in fact, a theorist by the name of Henry Murray presented this wonderful body of work that really cites our secondary motives. Again, this is connected to secondary drives. So Murray says, hey, we all have a need for achievement. So people will start to run a marathon, or they will start to enter some type of cook-off contest, some bakery contest, or what have you, because they want this need of achievement to say that they have done it or they have completed something. And you'll find that a lot of people do that. The second need that was cited is the need for affiliation. Have you ever noticed that people join certain clubs and groups, or even sororities and fraternities, so they can feel very much connected to people, which can be a very healthy thing. But again, it's affirming their need for affiliation. The last form of connection or motive is called the need for understanding. A lot of us search out material or search the internet to understand some form of very trivial or very random, as some people would say, question. And it's because we want to have this feeling of fully understanding somewhat of some form of content. So secondary drives, again, are not biological drives. They're more learned. And Henry Murray said that we have these secondary motives that push our need for achievement, our need for affiliation, and our need for understanding. Now, you will also find that there are some drawbacks to these theories. For instance, the primary drive theory, which is connected to the drive reduction theory, doesn't provide a really good explanation for why people overeat. So that's one drawback. The drive reduction theory also fails to give an account for times when we seem to motivate ourselves by increasing the tension or arousal levels within our bodies. A good example of that is riding a roller coaster. So there are some major limitations to our theories. So I'm going to close out 5.1a, and I'll see you back at 5.1b. We'll talk about some of the other theories of motivation. See you soon.